The halls are dim. A lantern swings gently. Tonight, you're not watching, you're walking. And while you probably wouldn't make it through this world with your modern sleep schedule, we'll just wander through it quietly. Like and subscribe if this is your kind of bedtime. Let me know where you're listening from and what time the night found you here. Now breathe in. Slow down. Let's begin. Listen closely, wanderer. History murmurs softly tonight, and some secrets sleep lighter than others. You arrive slowly, like smoke drifting through an open window, settling into the sleeping bones of a Spanish colony on the edge of empire. The air is thick and sticky, syruped by humidity, flavored with the uneasy sleep of 1,000 restless souls. Cobblestone streets stretch before you, glistening damply beneath the muted silver moonlight. Houses, built sturdy yet somehow fragile in their silence, line these streets, their whitewashed walls now ghostly gray, shadow-dipped beneath iron balconies dripping with jasmine. The scent is sweet, yes, but faintly nauseating, as though the blossoms themselves know secrets they cannot bear. Each home breathes softly, holding families, soldiers, servants, and ghosts that won't lie still. And you're nothing but a quiet observer, an intangible shade creeping between alleyways, courtyards, and crumbling stucco arches. Your eyes drink in the details, the rough weave of curtains swaying gently in the breeze, the cracked pottery left empty on doorsteps, a forgotten child's doll staring wide-eyed into oblivion. This colony, poised somewhere between dream and dread, belongs to Spain, or so its banners declare, hanging limp like weary tongues in the night air. But the streets beneath them, soaked through with centuries of whispers and muffled screams, belong only to themselves. They bear witness. You notice first the subtle things. Lanterns flickering weakly along narrow paths, their flames dancing as if uncertain whether to illuminate or hide what lurks beneath. Street cats padding softly, elegantly indifferent, their eyes aglow as though privy to truths you couldn't bear to hear. Shadows that slither too swiftly around corners, chased by whispers you can't quite make out. It is the whispers, in fact, that have drawn you here tonight. Soft, rasping murmurs that nestle into ears and minds like worms burrowing gently into soft, vulnerable earth. These are not joyful tidings or idle gossip, no. They carry something heavier, something that curdles sleep and blights dreams. Tonight, these whispers carry the faint memory of rebellion. In a colony such as this, rebellion is not shouted from rooftops nor paraded down avenues. It drips quietly from tongues, pools discreetly behind closed doors, and slips into silence when footsteps echo nearby. It breeds in backrooms, churches, taverns, and the anxious eyes of servants as they clear the table, pretending ignorance, seeing all. But tonight, there's a particular whisper. A whisper tinged with sadness and quiet pride. It carries the name of a boy, young, foolish perhaps, but brave. A boy who dared to lift his voice just loud enough to tremble the crystal chandeliers hanging in the governor's grand hall. He had spoken against injustice, accused power of corruption, arrogance, cruelty. His words, gentle yet biting, had sliced open a silence that power preferred tightly sewn. And now, these streets whisper his fate uncertainly. Rumors fly like moths, desperate and fragile, drawn irresistibly to the light of tragedy. The boy has vanished, gone as swiftly and quietly as dew in morning's cruel sunlight. In his absence, darkness blooms thick and soft, like velvet wrapped around the colony's heart. A church bell softly tolls somewhere far away, resonating through the night air with aching clarity. 1 toll, 2 tolls, 3 tolls, each peal slower, sadder, lonelier. It might as well be counting lost souls, those who defied the empire, those who vanished, those who whisper still from behind cracked shutters and barred windows. Your ghostly gaze shifts upwards, lingering on the dark silhouette of the governor's mansion, crouched high upon the hillside like some bloated spider guarding its web. Even at this distance, its windows seem watchful, reflecting nothing but emptiness, guarded by whispers of their own. Inside, perhaps the governor dreams fitfully, haunted by shadows, tangled in sheets of silk and sweat. Below, the colony sleeps uneasily. You drift gently through streets and alleys, where whispers converge and splinter apart, fragmentary voices mingling, secrets birthed, betrayed, hidden. You listen carefully, catching hints and implications, but always circling back to the missing boy. He hovers, unseen, around corners, behind lampposts, in the shadows beneath empty carts. Everywhere and nowhere, a spirit unsettled. But the boy himself? He's nowhere tonight. No one claims to have seen him taken. No one admits to hearing his final cry, nor remembers clearly his last whispered defiance. Only echoes remain, echoes fading swiftly into silence, where memory becomes myth, and myth becomes madness. Your own heart, intangible yet somehow achingly present, throbs softly, a quiet drumbeat marking time beneath the oppressive weight of the colony's silence. You know something else, though you're uncertain how. The boy's disappearance is not an end, but a beginning, a soft and terrible ripple spreading outward. The air tonight vibrates gently with that promise, heavy and unnerving. The church bell finally stills, its echoes swallowed hungrily by the dark, and silence descends once more, thick and suffocating. Yet beneath that silence lies a quiet, persistent whisper. A whisper that asks questions, hints at secrets, and breathes quietly into ears, urging remembrance. In these streets, history is written softly, gently, horribly. And you, wanderer, are here to witness it all. You drift forward, compelled by the quiet anguish that ripples beneath the colony's calm surface. Your night is just beginning, and somewhere out there, lost but never entirely forgotten, waits the boy who dared speak truth to the Spanish governor and vanished into legend. Come now, follow the whispers deeper. You first see him in flickers, glimpses dancing between candlelight and shadow, a figure defined by absence, traced by silence. The boy who challenged an empire wasn't always myth. Once, he was flesh, breath, a heart beating with fierce purpose beneath a chest too small for such weighty dreams. His name, the whispers tell you, was Mateo. They say it softly, lovingly, like a secret kept close to the heart. Mateo, the boy who spoke what grown men dared not think. Mateo, the young firebrand whose gaze ignited rebellion's quiet embers. Mateo, lost somewhere between a courageous whisper and the crushing silence of vanished youth. You drift backward gently, guided by echoes of memory, until you find him. 12 years old, standing defiantly in the soft golden light of a late afternoon plaza beneath the looming shadow of empire. The boy is slim, dark-haired, eyes wide and clear as polished obsidian, reflecting not just the surrounding world but something deeper, brighter, burning from within. His eyes, indeed, seem lit from some hidden fire, an ember of defiance that even harshest punishment cannot extinguish. Around him, life churns slowly. Merchants peddle wares, soldiers saunter lazily, and the day fades in soft layers of warmth. It could almost be peaceful, if not for the tension woven subtly into the air, a vibration felt in quiet glances, stiffened postures, and whispers that catch briefly, anxiously in throats. Mateo feels this tension keenly. He carries it like a burden, invisible but undeniable. What sparked Mateo's defiance, you ask softly? Perhaps it was not one grand injustice, but 1,000 tiny cruelties stitched neatly into the fabric of daily life. Taxes that crushed the poor, sentences doled out carelessly, land taken quietly from families who had farmed it gently for generations. The empire's presence weighed heavily, softly suffocating like a velvet curtain drawn too close around the neck. Mateo's father, a quiet man with calloused hands and tired eyes, once whispered warnings. "Speak too loud, my son, and they'll hear you. Listen closely instead. There's power in silence." But Mateo was born with words burning in his throat, and silence for him felt too much like acceptance, like death by 1,000 whispered surrenders. Instead he spoke, first carefully, then courageously. Soft at first, his voice trembled with nerves and barely contained outrage. Soon it grew steady, louder, firm. Mateo's words found listeners in taverns, workshops, and starlit rooftops, spoken softly yet with piercing clarity. "We are worth more than their gold," he whispered passionately, eyes aflame. "More than the silver lining their pockets, more than the land they bleed dry." People paused, taken aback, fearful, yet secretly thrilled. Mateo's small frame, his young voice, both too fragile and too brave, lent his words unexpected power. The empire had not yet learned to fear whispers from children's mouths. Yet whispers, wanderer, are exactly how rebellions begin. Quiet, unnoticed, spreading unseen like mold beneath rich fabric. Mateo's words became candle flames flickering quietly through the colony. Old men and young women repeated them softly behind closed doors. Children, playing beneath balconies, echoed his defiance in sing-song whispers, half understood yet thrillingly rebellious. Mateo himself, however, did not fully grasp how far his voice traveled. He was simply a boy who believed fiercely in right and wrong, who dreamed quietly of justice. He did not see himself as revolutionary, he merely sought fairness, decency, and dignity. But empires fear fairness most of all. It threatens their carefully balanced scale, where power weighs heavily on one side, injustice lightly on the other, and the two must never meet as equals. And so Mateo soon drew attention, unwanted and dangerous attention. Soldiers paused their games of dice and murmured about the small boy with a too large mouth. Judges in velvet robes exchanged knowing glances. Merchants, eager for imperial favor, whispered Mateo's name carefully into ears, hidden beneath plumed hats. Mateo had become known, not just by neighbors, but by power itself. Still, wanderer, imagine the courage it takes for a child to stand firm beneath such scrutiny. Picture Mateo, speaking gently yet unwaveringly, eyes burning fiercely with conviction. Even those who loved him begged softly, "Speak no more, child. Let others bear this burden." But Mateo refused to yield. Each word he spoke was a tiny, defiant spark. Each spark capable of igniting something powerful, something terrifying. Mateo was not naive. He felt danger approach softly, intimately, like a familiar yet unwanted companion. Shadows seemed darker around his family's small home, whispers less comforting, eyes watching more intently. He knew, even as he spoke, he risked losing everything. But silence for Mateo was a far heavier price to pay. So he stood each day defiant beneath sunlit skies, beneath gathering storm clouds, beneath imperial flags hanging heavy and damp. His voice remained gentle, earnest, yet burned with relentless intensity. And people listened, quietly, uneasily, but increasingly attentively. A spark had been lit, and no matter how softly Mateo spoke, he could no longer contain the fire. You see him clearly now, don't you? Standing alone, impossibly brave, far too small against the looming force of empire. You feel your heart ache gently, empathetic, sorrowful. Mateo, the boy who dared speak truth softly enough to shake the empire's foundations, whose very existence posed questions power found unbearable. You drift closer, helplessly, yearning to shield him, whisper warnings he cannot hear. But the past is indifferent, unreachable, silent to your ghostly pleas. Mateo stands there still, resolute, eyes burning softly with rebellion's promise. Look carefully, wanderer. Remember his face, young and defiant, lit gently by fading sun, shadowed quietly by looming tragedy. Remember his voice, quiet yet thunderous. Remember his courage, fragile yet unstoppable. Remember Mateo, who spoke softly enough to ignite an empire's quiet rage, and whose gentle defiance would soon vanish into the night. Above the colony, overlooking narrow streets and shadow-stained alleys, sits the governor's mansion, a sprawling, white-walled labyrinth that sprawls across the hill like an elegant bruise upon the landscape. Draped in elegance yet heavy with secrets, its walls hide 1,000 whispered regrets and countless hushed betrayals. Tonight, within this palace of empire, sleep remains stubbornly elusive, disturbed by dreams both ghostly and gently accusing. You drift quietly through the mansion's halls, an invisible guest welcomed by no one, yet tolerated silently by centuries of past shadows. Each room you pass through tells a story. The scent of polished wood and old velvet upholstery mingling gently with the musk of decay. Crystal chandeliers dangle heavily overhead, their crystals catching the faint moonlight, each gleaming facet reflecting a different, half-remembered nightmare. Within the mansion, luxury masks unease. Silk curtains whisper softly in the breeze, while portraits of past governors stare blankly, eyes dull, disapproving, and utterly joyless. Servants pad silently, trained to move like phantoms, leaving behind only the quiet sigh of polished boots on marble tiles and the faint, mournful clink of porcelain teacups. Finally, you arrive at the governor's chambers, a space intended for restful solitude, but tonight heavy with the scent of restless dread. The room itself is vast, lushly furnished, but haunted by an invisible, anxious presence. In a bed draped in silk and linen, beneath a canopy embroidered with fading imperial gold, lies the governor, twisting softly beneath sheets soaked through with sweat and dreams. The governor, like the empire he serves, is grand yet brittle, stately from afar but riddled with cracks upon closer inspection. His hair is silver, carefully arranged to hide thinning patches. His eyes dark-ringed from nights spent silently counting worries rather than sheep. Tonight his sleep is uneasy, tormented by whispers he cannot silence. As you hover softly nearby, you see his eyelids flicker with dreams, visions that dance slowly, horribly through his mind. He dreams perhaps of judgment, of shadows rising softly from the corners of his bedchamber, their accusing whispers like rustling silk against his ears. Within these dreams, reality twists gently, mercilessly into nightmare. He sees the plaza again, warm beneath afternoon sun, filled with faces turned attentively toward one small, defiant boy. Mateo's voice, clear, firm, unbearably gentle, floats upward, carried by wind and memory alike, softly condemning the corruption eating away at the governor's very bones. The boy's words haunt him now, creeping softly through his dreams, unbearable precisely because they are true. "What good is your gold?" Mateo whispers gently, a smile curving sadly upon his lips, "when the poor starve beneath its weight?" And in the governor's dream, the gold he once cherished suddenly feels impossibly heavy, pressing down gently, insistently, upon his chest, until each breath comes softer, weaker. The governor wakes suddenly, gasping gently into the darkness. His room is silent, calm, yet the boy's whisper echoes quietly, persistently within his ears. The governor rubs his chest absently, fingers trembling slightly, before pulling himself upright, silk sheets pooling softly around his waist. "Just a dream," he murmurs quietly, reassuring himself in a voice that betrays doubt. The darkness does not answer, but in the shadows, memories whisper back softly, like ghosts rising reluctantly from their graves. Unable to sleep again, the governor rises. You follow quietly as he paces, barefoot, silk robe trailing behind, across cold marble floors. He passes mirrors that reflect a pale, anxious man, rather than the powerful ruler he imagines himself to be. He does not recognize the figure reflected back to him, eyes sunken, posture slumped, pride softened into weary dread. He moves toward a small wooden desk, pulling forth parchment and quill. He scribbles gently, urgently. Names, whispers, questions, all centering around Mateo. His hand shakes faintly as the ink spreads softly, dark as dried blood, across parchment. The governor has begun to fear a small boy, fear that burrows gently, relentlessly into his bones. He sits back slowly, exhaling softly, staring at his list of names as if it might speak back, offering comfort or solution. It does neither. Instead, the ink dries slowly, softly sealing fates yet undecided. Outside his window, stars blink gently, indifferent to his anguish. "He's just a boy," the governor whispers again, almost pleadingly. But he knows better. This boy's words have infected the colony quietly, softly, spreading unrest with each gentle breath. The boy, Mateo, has ceased to be merely a child. He's become a symbol, an idea whispered through dark streets, carried softly by those who yearn for change. The governor knows that ideas, however softly spoken, are more dangerous than armies. Soldiers can be commanded, silenced, dismissed, but ideas are vapor, slipping gently through fingers, impossible to catch or crush. Mateo's whispers spread through the governor's colony like gentle poison, sweet yet deadly, unsettling and undeniably powerful. He sighs, pinching the bridge of his nose, softly wishing Mateo had simply remained silent. But silence, the governor knows, is the privilege of the powerful. Those who suffer, who struggle, whose lives balance softly upon the whims of empire, rarely remain silent forever. Wearily, the governor returns to bed, sheets cool now yet still damp with anxious sweat. Sleep returns softly, though less restful. Dreams become whispers again. Softer, yes, but more insistent, each dream carrying Mateo's quiet voice. "Will you silence us all?" Mateo asks gently in the governor's dream, eyes bright with soft defiance. "Will you drown our voices beneath your gold and velvet until no truth remains?" The governor turns in his sleep, trying vainly to ignore the question that burns softly, deeply within him. He does not know the answer, or perhaps worse, he does. As dawn approaches, shadows recede softly, replaced by gentle golden light. But for the governor, peace remains elusive. Mateo's ghostly whispers have settled deeply, gently within his heart, an uncomfortable guest, softly persistent. You drift quietly backward, leaving him there, haunted gently by dreams he cannot escape, by truths he refuses softly to acknowledge. The mansion breathes quietly behind you, heavy with whispered regrets and unresolved terrors. The governor's mansion tonight sleeps uneasily, disturbed softly by ghosts it cannot banish, Mateo's gentle whispers foremost among them. Drift away, wanderer, softly now. Let sleep claim you, far from these restless dreams. But listen closely, as softly as you dare, for in the silence between breaths, Mateo's voice might find you too. Beneath the serene mask of empire, where Spanish flags flutter gently in the humid breeze, rebellion germinates softly, almost invisibly, like mildew creeping through richly embroidered curtains. A seed buried deep does not ask permission before it pushes through damp soil, nor does a whisper seek approval before it spreads quietly through a restless colony. You drift now through the colony's hidden heart, a ghostly witness as Mateo's words ripple outward gently, spreading softly from street corner to market stall, from tavern to chapel, from whispered prayer to clandestine meeting. His youthful voice echoes quietly yet clearly, threading gently through conversations that pause abruptly when soldiers approach, only to resume more urgently when they disappear back into shadow. The tavern, tonight, hums quietly with careful murmurs. Candles drip wax slowly onto wooden tabletops worn smooth by countless anxious fingertips. Farmers, merchants, and laborers gather softly beneath the low ceilings, speaking in hushed tones, eyes glancing frequently toward doorways and windows. The air is thick with unease and quiet excitement. Mateo's name dances softly from lips to ears, an invocation whispered as reverently as prayer. His courage, so improbable, so dangerous, has ignited something quietly powerful, an ember glowing gently within the community's chest. "The boy speaks true," mutters Diego, an elderly carpenter whose fingers have shaped more chairs than rebellions. His eyes, weathered by years of quiet suffering, glisten gently in the dim tavern light. "We've bowed too long, quietly swallowing each indignity." Beside him, Anna, a young woman whose husband vanished silently beneath imperial custody last year, nods gently. Her voice trembles slightly, infused with quiet grief. "They took Juan in silence, expecting ours in return," she whispers. "But the boy's words give us courage we've forgotten we had." Around the table, soft murmurs ripple. Agreement, quiet anger, fear mingled gently with hope. Mateo, whose small, fragile voice carried so softly yet so powerfully, has given these souls permission to speak quietly what they've only ever dared think. Across the colony, Mateo's gentle rebellion takes quiet shape. In workshops, blacksmiths hammer gently, whispering plans softly over ringing anvils. Bakers, kneading dough tenderly in the pre-dawn dark, speak softly about the boy whose courage rises quietly like bread beneath a cloth. Even the colony's children feel Mateo's gentle influence. They play beneath shady trees, mimicking his quiet defiance in hushed sing-song rhymes, dangerous yet innocent. Mateo spoke words soft but bold, truth he whispered, louder than gold. Quiet voices will one day roar, empire's silence forevermore. Soldiers, passing quietly nearby, pay the children no mind. What harm, after all, can soft voices carry? Yet whispers, wanderer, grow quietly, relentlessly. They seep beneath locked doors, thread softly through barred windows, infiltrating hearts the empire never thought vulnerable. At the chapel, Father Luis, an aging priest whose sermons usually lull parishioners gently into obedient silence, speaks softly tonight beneath flickering candles. His eyes, once mild, now burn gently yet fiercely. "Justice is God's voice," he murmurs carefully, "and we have let power speak louder for far too long." His congregation shifts quietly, uneasily, feeling the tension softly ripple through pews. Mateo's spirit lingers gently here, his courage woven into the priest's quiet sermon. Even God, it seems, now whispers softly of rebellion. Meanwhile, hidden beneath moonlit shadows, secret meetings bloom quietly, sheltered by darkness. Laborers gather in barns, scented gently with hay and sweat, discussing softly, urgently, asking themselves what comes next, what quiet actions must follow Mateo's gentle defiance. Plans form slowly, hesitantly, whispered carefully between trusted souls. Seeds of rebellion take root softly yet steadily, nourished gently by shared suffering and collective hope. Yet rebellion is not gentle by nature. It simmers quietly, yes, but beneath that simmering lies a dangerous fire, patient yet fierce, waiting softly for the spark to ignite it fully. Mateo was the spark, but how long until his gentle flame becomes a conflagration? How long before empire notices the heat beneath its feet? The governor, restless in his mansion, senses something shifting quietly beneath his feet. Though he cannot yet name it clearly, the subtle signs are everywhere. Guards reporting hushed conversations abruptly silenced as they approach. Merchants whose eyes no longer lower quite so obediently. Children who whisper dangerous rhymes with quiet defiance. His sleep grows ever more restless, haunted softly by Mateo's youthful face, brave yet somehow sad, defiant yet gentle. He begins quietly tightening his grip. Curfews enforced more sternly, Soldiers patrolling streets softly yet insistently, whispers brutally silenced whenever overheard. But Empire's iron fist only encourages quiet rebellion to dig deeper, burrow softly, hide more cleverly, beneath polite smiles and innocent glances. You drift through the streets now, wanderer, observing gently, helplessly. Beneath your intangible touch, you feel rebellion sprouting quietly, everywhere and nowhere. A web of whispers, invisible yet powerful, gently gathering strength. Each quiet defiance strengthens resolve. Each whispered word adds gently to the fabric of rebellion. Yet rebellion carries a gentle dread all its own. Beneath whispered hope lurks fear. Fear of what happens when Empire finally hears these quiet murmurs clearly. Mateo spoke bravely, but at what quiet cost? Tonight, as you drift gently beneath starlight, you sense the colony standing softly at a crossroads. Behind them lies silence, submission, the slow smothering of dreams. Ahead lies rebellion, dangerous, uncertain, softly terrifying. Mateo's voice, quiet yet unyielding, has led them gently to this edge. Each must now choose softly, step forward into uncertain courage, or retreat quietly back into comforting silence. But silence, they've learned, can be the cruelest whisper of all. Your ghostly heart aches softly for Mateo, whose small, brave words ignited this quiet flame. You wonder gently if he understood what his whispers would awaken. Did he imagine these soft murmurs, these hidden seeds, sprouting gently yet dangerously beneath the colony's peaceful mask? You drift away slowly, leaving the colony to its whispered deliberations, feeling rebellion stir softly, restlessly beneath your intangible fingertips. Mateo's voice, carried quietly by memory and whispers, follows you, gentle yet insistent, asking softly, "How long will whispers remain quiet before they become cries?" Sleep now, wanderer, far from these gentle yet restless whispers. But listen softly, for tonight, beneath Empire's proud silence, rebellion quietly blooms. Night falls again, softly cloaking the Spanish colony in velvet darkness. A darkness embroidered faintly by stars, punctured softly by candle flames flickering gently behind shuttered windows. But tonight, beneath these gentle lights, secrets stir restlessly. Tonight, whispers carry not just hope, but accusation, suspicion, betrayal. You drift through the colony's shadows, invisible yet achingly present, feeling the air thicken gently, heavily with dread. Quietly, the colony's citizens retreat behind locked doors, pulling curtains tight, wary of what may emerge softly from the dark. No one sleeps deeply tonight. Instead, candles burn late, their flames trembling gently, casting uncertain shadows on walls. Behind one such window, a wealthy merchant named Esteban sits anxiously, gripping his goblet so tightly that his knuckles whiten. He whispers softly to a visitor, an imperial official whose velvet sleeves brush lightly against parchment covered with hastily inked accusations. "I heard Mateo speak myself," Esteban whispers urgently, voice lowered carefully. His eyes dart anxiously toward the closed door, as though expecting the boy himself to appear softly, accusingly. "He speaks poison, sir. Quiet words, yes, but words that twist good men against the Empire." The official, thin, sharp-eyed, expression carefully neutral, nods softly, scratching gently onto parchment, sealing Mateo's fate quietly, stroke by stroke. "And who else listens to this boy?" he asks, voice cool, softly probing. Esteban hesitates, guilt flickering softly in his eyes. But fear tightens its quiet grip on his heart, and loyalty to Empire, or perhaps simply to self-preservation, makes him speak names softly yet clearly. "Diego, the carpenter. Ana, the seamstress. Even Father Luis, I've seen their whispers in the plaza, quiet yet dangerous." The official's pen scratches softly, pitilessly, collecting names like whispered currency. "Good," he murmurs. "Empire rewards loyalty quietly but generously." Esteban lowers his gaze, cheeks flushed softly with shame, candlelight deepening the lines of regret on his face. Elsewhere, behind the chapel's gentle stone walls, Father Luis kneels softly in prayer. But tonight, prayer feels brittle, uncertain. His heart races gently, unevenly, as candles gutter softly around him, casting restless shadows. Tonight, God feels distant, judgmental, suspiciously quiet. Father Luis senses whispers spreading softly yet insidiously. He has spoken Mateo's truths carefully, yes, but whispers, he knows, twist gently yet ruthlessly, reshaping truth until it resembles treason. The priest wonders gently who watches him tonight, what quiet eyes peer through cracks and shutters, listening to his whispered prayers. Across town, Ana sits alone, stitching anxiously beneath trembling candlelight. Her needle pricks softly at linen, trembling hands betraying quiet dread. Since her husband vanished softly into imperial custody, Anna has grown adept at silence, but tonight, silence itself seems suspect. She imagines whispers crawling gently beneath her door, slipping silently through keyholes, watching from shadows. "They'll come quietly," she murmurs to herself, the words trembling gently from her lips. They always come softly, when the night's deepest. She glances nervously toward her door, expecting softly insistent knocks at any moment, soldiers carrying quiet accusations. At Diego's workshop, the elderly carpenter shapes wood gently, hands calloused yet trembling faintly. His candle casts flickering shadows, dancing softly yet restlessly across his face. Diego has lived quietly, obediently, but Mateo's words stirred gently within him, igniting quiet rebellion in a heart long accustomed to silence. Yet tonight, Diego wonders gently how much he's whispered, and to whom. He sees betrayal lurking softly in shadows, in faces that smiled warmly yesterday, but tonight seem quietly accusing. He imagines whispers slipping through the streets like poison, quiet yet deadly, carrying his name softly, insidiously. Meanwhile, in the governor's mansion, candlelight dances softly across tapestries and polished marble. Officials gather quietly in a softly lit study, passing lists of names in whispers so hushed they barely disturb the flickering flames. Mateo's gentle rebellion has blossomed dangerously. Whispers have multiplied softly, each becoming quiet accusations carried secretly into imperial ears. The governor himself watches silently, his eyes sunken softly, shoulders heavy beneath silken robes. Candle flames flicker gently, reflecting softly off golden goblets and silver trays. Riches that tonight feel meaningless, burdensome. Empire, the governor realizes softly, has begun feeding on itself. Whispers breeding suspicion, fear, paranoia. "Bring me the boy," he murmurs finally, voice quiet yet chilling. "Bring Mateo before me. Let his whispers die softly beneath imperial justice." Officials nod quietly, disappearing softly into the night to execute orders whispered from trembling lips to eager ears. Outside, candles continue flickering softly, each flame trembling gently with dread. And Mateo himself? Tonight, the boy sits quietly by a single candle, reading softly beneath the fragile glow, unaware of whispers twisting quietly around him. His family sleeps nearby, unaware of quiet footsteps already approaching gently yet inexorably toward their humble door. Mateo pauses briefly, looking softly into candlelight. Does he sense whispers softly encircling him, accusing, condemning? Does he hear quiet footsteps nearing, feel fate closing gently around him? Perhaps. Yet tonight, Mateo's courage remains softly, gently intact. He returns quietly to his book, unaware, or perhaps accepting, of the quiet fate softly knocking at his door. Outside, the colony holds its breath, candles flickering gently, fear seeping softly through cracks beneath doors and around shuttered windows. Whispers that began as gentle defiance have twisted quietly into something darker, uglier, soft accusations, secret betrayals, quiet doom. You drift softly through these anxious rooms, feeling whispers wrap gently, accusingly around you. Mateo's quiet rebellion, once gentle and hopeful, has been weaponized, twisted quietly against those who dared listen, dared whisper back. Empire tonight holds candles softly yet menacingly, each flame illuminating gently not just the colony's fears but its quietly sharpened blades of betrayal. Mateo's courage sparked whispers, but tonight whispers burn gently yet terribly, softly consuming trust, friendship, courage itself. You retreat slowly, softly from candlelit accusations, feeling Empire's velvet grip tightening gently, suffocating softly yet inevitably. Mateo's words, so gently spoken, echo softly, sadly through your intangible heart, now bearing the quiet weight of betrayal, dread, whispered accusation. Sleep now, wanderer, far from whispers, candles, accusations carried softly yet cruelly. Sleep softly, gently, but listen quietly, for tonight whispers no longer comfort. Tonight, whispers accuse. The hour is somewhere between darkness and light, too late for dreams, too early for courage. The sky is still the color of damp wool, heavy and low, as if the heavens themselves are holding their breath. A chill clings gently to the corners of rooftops and windowsills, the kind of morning where time feels too fragile to touch. This is when they come. Not in the full bloom of daylight, when eyes bear witness and protests might grow legs. No, Empire prefers dawn, when the world is soft and sleepy and unguarded, when the soul is still tucked inside its ribs, not yet braced for cruelty. You drift now through the dusty alleys behind Mateo's home. There's dew on the ground, beating gently on crooked stones and drying laundry left overnight. A thin line of wood smoke curls from the chimney. Inside, the boy still sleeps, peacefully, perhaps for the last time. His body, curled beneath a coarse wool blanket, looks smaller in the half-light. One arm drapes lazily off the mat, fingers twitching softly with the rhythm of dreams. You wonder, is he dreaming of books, of justice, of rebellion? Or is he dreaming of nothing at all, simply drifting in the quiet dark, unaware of the weight preparing to fall? And then the knock. 3 soft raps, deliberate, courteous, final. The kind of knock that asks politely but will not leave without an answer. Inside, a chair creaks. Mateo's mother stirs first, rubbing the sleep from her eyes with fingers calloused by laundry, by labor, by years of knowing too much and saying too little. She glances at the boy beside her, then at the door, her stomach already folding in on itself. Instincts, older, faster, sharper than reason, begin to stir. Mateo's father rises quietly, without speaking. His face is still, expression unreadable. But his movements are careful, practiced, as though he's rehearsed this moment 1,000 times behind closed eyelids. He moves toward the door and opens it. The soldiers standing there do not shout. They are not cruel, not yet. They wear the soft expression of those who believe themselves righteous. Their uniforms are freshly pressed, swords polished not for blood, but for the ritual of obedience. One of them, taller, younger, too clean for this hour, steps forward with a scroll. "Summons from the office of the governor," he says, voice barely above a whisper. The boy is requested for questioning. He is not under arrest. A lie, of course, but a polite one, wrapped in velvet, dipped in ceremony. Inside, Mateo has risen. He stands in the doorway of the bedroom, watching the exchange with wide, dark eyes. He's not shaking, not crying, not speaking, just watching, calm, alert, impossibly still, like a candle that refuses to flicker in the breeze. His mother crosses the room in 2 steps and places her hands on his shoulders. She looks down at him with something too heavy to name. Pride? Fear? Resignation? All of them, perhaps, braided quietly into a single exhale. "You don't have to say anything," she whispers. Mateo nods. He already knows. He dresses quickly. A simple shirt, his cleanest trousers, boots with one broken lace. And then, most importantly, he slips a small, worn book into his pocket, the one he always carries. The one with margins filled with ideas too dangerous for paper, too beautiful to forget. The soldiers wait outside. They do not rush. They understand the performance. Empire is patient. It lets you have your goodbyes, so long as they are soft and short. Mateo steps forward. His little sister, barely old enough to form sentences, stares at him from the hallway, thumb in mouth, blanket clutched in hand. He leans down and kisses her forehead. "Don't forget the songs I taught you," he murmurs. She nods, though she doesn't yet know what remembering will cost. Outside, dawn has barely broken. The colony is still asleep, or pretending to be. Curtains flutter as watchers pretend not to see. Doors remain closed, no one intervenes. Empires make spectators of cowards, and cowards of all who wish to live quietly. Mateo walks between the soldiers, head high, steps even. He does not glance back. You follow, wanderer, gliding like breath along the street, keeping pace with this strange little procession. A boy and 2 uniforms, casting long, uneven shadows across the dirt. They don't put shackles on him. That would make too much noise. Instead, they walk toward the governor's mansion in silence, like ghosts escorting one of their own. The only sound is the soft crunch of boots on gravel and the occasional creak of leather straps. Mateo says nothing. The soldiers say nothing. The streets say nothing. But you hear it, don't you? The tension, the absence. The city holding its breath. This wanderer is how fear travels, quietly like fog. It doesn't knock down doors or cry out in the streets. It arrives at dawn, says please, and waits for you to follow. The governor's mansion is close now. Its white stone glows pink with early light, as if embarrassed by the role it's about to play. The front gates open smoothly, without resistance. Mateo steps through them as easily as one might enter a neighbor's house for tea. But this is no neighbor's house. This is where names are erased, not remembered. The doors close behind him. You remain outside. You can go no further, not yet. So you wait, quietly, watching the sunrise creep along the rooftops, feeling the weight of the silence that follows when the brave are taken. The summons has been served. The boy has gone willingly. and the colony will now decide whether to follow his footsteps or his silence. Inside the governor's mansion, silence is carefully curated. The air itself is pressed flat, as though sound were an unwelcome guest, an impolite thing that must be hushed before it spreads. Walls are padded with tapestries, footsteps absorbed by velvet runners. Here, judgment is not declared. It is insinuated. You drift through the corridors, invisible and uninvited, as the boy Mateo is led gently, almost reverently, through a sequence of ornate rooms. Each one is colder than the last, though no one mentions it. No one speaks at all. The trial is not held in a courtroom. That would be too formal, too visible, too real. No. It takes place in a private study, where dust is forbidden and truth is optional. The windows are narrow, the drapes drawn just enough to dull the light. The walls are lined with books too heavy to open, maps of a world carved by force, and portraits of men who never blink. Mateo is seated in a high-backed chair too large for him. It swallows him gently, as if the furniture itself has been taught to consume the accused. Across from him, behind a desk that smells faintly of ink and polished ivory, sits a magistrate in a robe dyed the color of old blood. His face is soft but sagging, lips too pale, hands too still. He does not look at Mateo directly. He studies the paper in front of him, a sheet so blank it seems to accuse by its emptiness. "You are not under arrest," the magistrate begins, voice as gentle as a bedtime story told by someone who secretly hates children. "We simply have questions." Mateo nods. He knows what this is. It is not justice, it is performance. And the audience is power itself. There is no jury. There are no witnesses, except for the officials gathered quietly in the corners. Record keepers, guards, one advisor who pretends to be cleaning his spectacles while carefully observing every flicker of emotion on Mateo's face. The magistrate continues, eyes never rising. "We've heard reports, unverified of course, that you have been speaking to groups of individuals, speaking about the empire, speaking against it." Mateo says nothing. The silence thickens. "You do understand," the magistrate murmurs, "that words, though small, can become weapons. Even gentle words." Mateo lifts his gaze now, slowly, steadily. There is no anger in his eyes, only light, a flickering, dangerous light. "I never told anyone to raise arms," he says quietly, "only to raise their heads." The room tightens, the scribe's pen hesitates. One of the guards shifts his weight. Even the air seems to withdraw slightly, as if startled by such unfiltered truth. The magistrate finally looks up. His face is calm, but his eyes are the color of rusted coins. "And you believe," he asks slowly, "that this is not sedition?" Mateo tilts his head. "I believe silence is worse." There it is again, that voice, too soft to echo, yet too sharp to ignore. It doesn't shout, it sings, it unsettles. The magistrate leans back slightly, folds his hands. He does not respond right away. He doesn't need to. The silence does his work for him. It wraps itself around Mateo's words and squeezes. Then come the questions, one after another. Each softer than the last, each more insidious. "Who taught you to think this way? Did someone give you these ideas? Who else was present when you spoke? Have you ever been offered money, food, protection for your words? Are you aware of the penalties for influencing the minds of others?" Mateo answers only when he chooses to. Some questions he lets pass like wind through leaves. Others, he meets head-on. "I spoke because I was tired of watching people kneel for scraps. I asked questions no one else dared ask. No one paid me, no one bribed me. I spoke because I was awake." It's not the answers that unnerve them. It's the calm, the lack of fear, the lack of rage. Empires can handle rage. Rage can be broken. But quiet conviction? That spreads. At one point, a low-ranking advisor leans forward and whispers something into the magistrate's ear. The magistrate nods slowly, then turns back to the boy. "You must understand," he says more gently now, as if consoling a wounded animal, "that this is not personal. We do not wish to harm you. You're young. You could still be useful. You could learn. You could assist us perhaps. Offer us names." He smiles just slightly. "We would protect you." Mateo blinks, and then, in the smallest voice yet, he replies, "You only protect those who stay silent." Silence again, but this time it is not empty. It is full, heavy, cracking under its own weight. You feel it, wanderer, the shift, the subtle unraveling of Empire's script. The performance has not gone to plan. The boy was meant to fold, softly, tearfully, predictably. But instead he sits there, calm, composed, and utterly terrifying, because he still believes he's right, because he is. The magistrate clears his throat. His voice, when it returns, is clipped. "You may return home for now." Mateo blinks once. He doesn't smile. He knows better. A guard gestures softly toward the door. Mateo rises, smooth as a shadow, and walks out. No one stops him. No one speaks. He doesn't look back. But as he leaves, the magistrate exhales. Not relief, fatigue, because now he knows. The trial was not for the boy. It was for them, and they lost. You float through the walls behind Mateo, following the soft fall of his footsteps down the mansion corridor, past velvet drapes and the quiet stares of painted ancestors. The boy is free, technically, but you can feel it, can't you? So can he. This is not the end of anything. It's the pause before the reckoning. He steps out into the sunlight. It feels too bright, the streets too quiet, the air too still. Because the colony knows now. The boy was summoned, he was questioned, and he did not break. That's more dangerous than any rebellion. That's how myths begin. The sun has risen fully now. It bathes the colony in gentle warmth, washing the plaza with gold and making the rooftops shimmer faintly like coins beneath a merchant's hand. Life resumes. Markets open. Children laugh. Church bells ring their innocent lullaby. But inside the governor's mansion, the morning feels colder than dawn. You drift slowly back into that house of quiet dread, past polished banisters and motionless portraits. The governor is already awake. Seated at his writing desk in the study, a vast slab of cedar darkened by time and ink and guilt. A silver cup of tea, untouched, steams faintly beside his elbow. The scent of dried citrus and something sharper, clove bay leaf, hangs uneasily in the air, trying and failing to mask a more honest aroma. Dust, sweat, old paper, and anxiety. He has just received the report. Mateo spoke calmly, refused to name names, offered no apology. And worse, he seemed proud. Not arrogant, no. Arrogance is forgivable. Arrogance is imperial. But conviction? That is something else entirely. Conviction infects. The governor leans back slowly in his high-backed chair, its frame creaking beneath him, his fingers pressed together in a silent steeple. Outside his window, the colony bustles softly. Below, mothers bargain over fruit. A donkey resists its driver's gentle urging. Soldiers loiter in the square, laughing too loudly, too deliberately. But in the governor's mind, all is quiet. All is Mateo. He closes his eyes, and there again is the boy, seated across the room. Thin shoulders, clear voice, eyes that did not flinch, eyes that burned, not with anger, but with something far worse. Belief. "I never told them to fight," the boy had said, "only to lift their heads." The governor chuckles softly now. Just once. It escapes unbidden, dry, brittle, without joy. He has ruled this colony for 16 years. He has overseen famines, quieted riots, silenced poets, and relocated entire families with the flick of a quill. He has sent men to the mines, women to the convents, and children to forgotten corners of the empire's machine. He has done his job, efficiently, quietly, with just enough cruelty to be remembered and just enough mercy to be respected. But never, not once, has he felt quite so watched by a child. He rises now, pacing slowly across the room. His boots thud gently against the wood, the sound of authority losing patience. The governor is not a man who curses often, but this morning his breath smells faintly of something bitter and angry. He looks into the mirror above the fireplace. For a moment he studies his own face. The lines have deepened, the eyes are darker. His smile, when he forces it, is thin, brittle. It cracks too easily at the corners. "You should have broken," he murmurs softly to the mirror. But the reflection says nothing. It only watches. He turns to his advisors, gathered silently near the wall like expensive furniture. They know better than to speak first. "What will the colony think?" the governor finally asks. They do not answer. They know better than that too. Because the answer is obvious. The colony will think the boy won. And in a way he did. Not because he walked free, but because he walked out with his head held high. The governor returns to his desk. He opens a drawer and pulls out a letter. The seal is unbroken. It's from the mainland, Madrid, a reminder of whose boots press softly on his neck. He considers opening it, but doesn't. Instead, he picks up a quill. "We cannot allow this boy to remain a symbol," he says aloud, voice even but laced with a quiet finality. The words don't echo. They simply settle into the room like ash. "If they see him again," he continues, "he becomes a legend. If he disappears, he trails off. The implication hangs in the air, unsaid but understood. Across the room, one of his advisors, a soft-spoken man with a lisp and an eye for logistics, nods gently. We can move quietly, no spectacle, no blood. The governor smiles. And oh, wanderer, what a smile it is. It isn't cruel, not exactly, nor is it gleeful. It's the kind of smile carved carefully from wood and habit. The kind of smile one wears when delivering mercy with one hand and ruin with the other. He believes this is mercy. Because mercy, in the language of empire, means making the problem vanish. He signs his name at the bottom of the parchment. The order is sealed, folded, handed off. A boy will vanish before the week ends. Quietly. No gallows, no trials, no graves, just absence. This is how the empire prefers its victories, not with noise but with erasure. A name unspoken, a face forgotten, a myth left unconfirmed, so that those who remain doubt their own memory. And yet, as the governor stands once more, straightening his collar, the smile begins to waver, just slightly, barely enough to see, because even in this moment of cold certainty, something lingers, a flicker, a question. What if the boy does not vanish? What if whispers prove louder than silence? What if, even without a body, the colony refuses to forget? He shakes the thought off, walks to the window, watches the sunlight crawl across the tiles of the plaza. Below, children run past a fountain. A soldier tips his hat to a baker's wife. Life goes on. But somewhere beneath that peaceful surface, the seed remains, planted, growing. The governor smiles once more, this time tighter. You see it now, don't you, wanderer? It's not confidence, it's fear with good posture. There is no announcement, no edict posted in the plaza, no carriage drawn dramatically through the streets. No one marches, no one cries out. Because there is nothing to cry out about, officially. Mateo has simply gone. You drift now through the colony, and something feels off, not loudly, not violently, just wrong. The kind of wrong you feel when you wake up and the birds aren't singing, when the bread tastes just slightly sour, when a house still has shoes by the door, but no laughter inside. It begins with the little things. The chair in the plaza, Mateo's favorite, where he would sit in the late afternoon sun, reading, scribbling, whispering ideas too large for his small frame, is empty now. Not claimed, not broken, just waiting. His family has not left their home. His mother still draws water from the well. His father still works, quieter than ever. But their eyes do not meet the eyes of others anymore. They do not ask questions. They do not offer answers. His sister, who used to skip along the cobblestones, dragging a doll with one arm, now moves like a shadow with feet. She doesn't speak unless spoken to. And even then, her answers are one-worded, feather-light, as though she fears her own voice might bring him back, or worse, confirm he's truly gone. And still, no one says it aloud, because no one knows what to say. They saw him walk home from the governor's mansion. They saw his face, unchanged. His steps, calm, his hands empty but steady. They saw him go inside, and then, nothing. No guards returned, no carriages arrived, no sounds in the night. Just one morning, a door left ajar, a bowl of half-eaten porridge, a blanket tossed back, still warm, and silence. A silence so loud it pressed against the windows. You drift inside the house now, wanderer. It's small but clean, the sort of home made by hands that knew how to endure. The table still has 3 chairs. The hearth still holds embers from last night. But there's a stillness here that even the walls seem afraid to disturb. His mother folds laundry that doesn't need folding. His father sharpens tools that are already sharp. His sister hums a lullaby Mateo once made up, off-key, over and over and over. No one says he's gone, because that would mean he isn't coming back. And that, no one is brave enough to believe. Outside, the colony begins to whisper again, but differently now. The whispers are softer, more cautious, tinged with something that tastes like ash. He left. Maybe he ran. Maybe he was taken, quietly, at night like the others. No, don't say that. He's just gone to stay with cousins, in the hills. You know the ones. But no one really believes the stories they tell each other. They speak them the way people touch a corpse, to make sure it's real, or to prove, desperately, that it isn't. Even Father Luis, who once thundered with Mateo's courage, now keeps his sermons soft. God is listening, he says, but sometimes he listens in silence. The congregation nods, not in agreement, in fear. One evening, Anna the seamstress brings bread to Mateo's mother. She doesn't stay long, she doesn't ask anything. just sets the basket down and leaves, as though the act of kindness must also remain silent. That night, Mateo's mother sets the bread beside his bed, just in case. And in the morning, the bread is still there, untouched. The colony tries to move on. Markets open. Streets are swept. Soldiers return to their routines, nodding politely to passers-by. But the silence left in Mateo's wake trails through the town like incense smoke. Thin, persistent, impossible to ignore. And still, no one dares knock on the governor's door. No one demands answers. No one files a petition, because they already know what happened. Or worse, they don't know, but they know what knowing would cost. The governor, for his part, says nothing. He walks through the plaza once that week, nodding to children, accepting fruit from a merchant. His smile is smooth, practiced. When someone brings up the boy who used to speak so kindly of justice, the governor simply raises a brow and says, "Children often wander, especially the spirited ones." And that's that. You watch from above, wanderer, as the colony slips back into the folds of fear. The quiet kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that doesn't scream but clenches its teeth and waits for the next name to vanish from the ledger. But there is one difference now. One thing that even silence cannot erase. They remember him. Not his last day, not his disappearance, not even the fear. They remember his voice. The way he spoke without shouting, the way he believed without forcing, the way he made them feel seen, even if only for a moment. Some nights the children gather by the fountain and whisper his words, like prayers, or maybe spells. Lift your head, you are more than their gold. The silence is not yours. Their mothers scold them softly, their fathers look away, but no one stops them. You drift away now, wanderer, slowly, like a curtain being drawn on a scene that refuses to end. Mateo is gone, not declared, not buried, just gone. A farewell too quiet to name, but listen. Not everything that disappears is forgotten. Some absences echo, some silence grows teeth. Dawn comes again, soft and reluctant. The kind of light that creeps rather than shines, as if even the sun hesitates to touch this place now. There's dew on the rooftops, pooling gently on window ledges, shimmering faintly on the lips of flower petals. And just like that, it vanishes. Evaporated. Absorbed. Gone before you remember to notice it was ever there. So too, it seems, with Mateo. No poster was nailed to the mission wall, no edict read from the church steps. There was no funeral, no mourning, not even a body. Only the quiet certainty that something is missing. You drift now through streets scrubbed clean. The governor's guards walk in tighter formations. The magistrate has not been seen in days, and those who once whispered in alleys and taverns now nod politely, speak briefly, and retreat quickly. Eyes that used to shine now blink slower. Lips that used to smile now remain quietly occupied with sips of water, chews of bread, silent prayers. It's not just fear, not exactly. It's a kind of rearrangement, as if the colony itself has begun to reorganize around the absence, like a house where someone has died but the furniture was left untouched. The people avoid the places Mateo used to stand. His chair in the plaza collects dust. His name is not spoken, but it lingers, like the ghost of a scent long gone. A mixture of chalk, paper, and sun-warmed cotton. At the schoolhouse, the children are quieter now. Their games are shorter, the songs softer. The teacher, once inspired by the boy's clarity, now reads from the imperial reader with hands that tremble just slightly. When one child asks where Mateo went, the teacher pauses too long, then responds with, "Some boys grow up faster than others." That satisfies no one. But no one asks again. In the markets, the baker who used to sneak Mateo's sweet rolls now gives one away each day to no one in particular. Just leaves it on a ledge, like an offering. Pigeons don't touch it. Even the animals know somehow what it means. And on the steps of the chapel, Father Luis lights a single candle every dusk. Just one. No sermon, no explanation. Just flame and silence. Some say it's for the boy, but they whisper it too low to hear clearly. He never confirms. He doesn't have to. There's something strange about a disappearance, isn't there, wanderer? A death you can hold. You can cry. You can bury. You can place flowers atop it and say, "Here lies the end." But a disappearance? A disappearance lingers. It haunts. It resists conclusion. And in this colony, so tightly wound, so proudly correct, so sweetly rotten, there is nothing more dangerous than a question that refuses to be answered. Rumors begin to sprout again, quieter this time, softer at the edges. Some say Mateo was taken to a prison ship, sent to toil in mines where the light never reaches. Others claim he was sent inland to a monastery to have the fire in him prayed away. A few whisper that he escaped, that he left at night and now lives in the mountains among outlaws and spirits, plodding gently in the silence. But the most whispered theory, the one that spreads like fog and clings like mist, is the simplest, that he simply evaporated, disappeared like morning dew. No footsteps, no farewell, no trace. And somehow that frightens them more than anything else, because it means it could happen to anyone, because it means the Empire can take without touching, can erase without effort, can unmake a person not with knives but with quiet. But you feel it, don't you? Not everything has been erased, because while the boy has vanished, his absence has weight, texture, memory, a pause before a prayer, a glance before a question, a softness in every silence. Even the governor feels it. You return now, once more, to the mansion. His steps are heavier. His reflection, polished daily, is no longer a comfort. He no longer dreams in peace. Instead, he wakes in the dark, heart racing, certain he heard a boy's voice just outside the window, whispering, "Are you still proud of what you've done?" But no one is there, only the breeze. Still, he orders more guards. He shortens curfew. He demands cheerful sermons, more festivals, brighter parades. He believes if the music is loud enough, no one will notice the silence. But they do. They notice. Because now, silence wears Mateo's shape. And you, wanderer, see him everywhere. You see him in the posture of a child refusing to kneel during morning pledges, in the baker who undercharges the poor by a single coin every time, in the soldier who walks slower through certain neighborhoods, pretending not to hear what he hears. You see him in the way people speak less but mean more, in the glances, the hush, the small everyday resistances that bloom in the cracks left by his disappearance. Mateo is gone, but he isn't, because legends don't need graves, they just need silence deep enough to echo. And this colony, it's echoing now. They don't admit it, not openly, but the colony is looking for him. Not officially, of course. The governor has moved on. The clergy offer no new prayers. The magistrate's ledgers show no active investigations. But the people, they're watching, waiting, searching, quietly, hopelessly, faithfully. You drift now through back streets and narrow alleys where shadows cling to the walls like questions no one dares ask. Here, in the places where Mateo once sat with a notebook on his lap and a head full of dangerous thoughts, his presence still lingers like the scent of smoke long after the fire's gone out. Every creak in the floorboards, every soft knock on a door, every flutter of curtain draws a glance. A pause, a momentary hope that maybe, just maybe, he's come back. Even now, even after everything. Because absence, wanderer, is not the same as forgetting. Absence is a puzzle with no corners, a riddle with no punchline. And when you vanish cleanly enough, you become the echo people strain to hear in their quietest hours. Let's follow a few of them, shall we? Diego, the carpenter. He still walks by the governor's mansion once a week. He doesn't look directly at the guards, doesn't stop, but he lingers just long enough to see if anyone is being escorted out the back. He's not even sure what he'd do if it happened. But the ritual comforts him. He swears he heard footsteps inside the alley behind the governor's garden one night. Soft, barefoot steps like someone pacing without purpose. He told Anna. She said he was dreaming. He wasn't. Anna, the seamstress. She started sewing initials into hidden seams of every garment she makes. Tiny letters, MS, stitched in silver thread so small you need to know they're there to find them. She tells herself it's nothing. It isn't. Once she thought she saw Mateo's face in a crowd. A flicker, half hidden by a hat brim. Her breath caught, her feet froze. When she blinked, he was gone. She cried later, not because it wasn't him, but because for one perfect second, it was. Father Luis, he no longer begins his sermons with scripture. He starts instead with a moment of silence, exactly 12 seconds long. No more, no less. No one asks why. They know. He's begun lighting 2 candles each night now, one for the boy and one for whoever decided he should disappear. He doesn't say this, of course, but his prayers have changed. They've become quieter, stranger, less directed at heaven and more toward memory itself, as though asking the past to please, please, not forget the boy who asked hard questions with soft eyes. Even the governor, yes, even him, seeks the ghost. Not out of guilt, not quite, but out of unease. He's begun receiving strange letters, unsigned, No threats, no accusations, just questions, written in a familiar hand. When did silence become mercy? How do you sleep, knowing the child is still louder than you? If no one speaks of me, why are your ears always ringing? Of course, he dismisses them, publicly, blames pranksters, dismisses staff, increases patrols, but privately, he does not sleep without wine, and even then, the dreams come. In one, Mateo stands at the edge of the plaza, barefoot, his eyes two mirrors reflecting the governor's face. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. You float now through the schoolyard, where children still whisper rhymes about the boy who vanished like mist. Their teachers scold them, but the more they're told to stop, the more the verses multiply. They draw him in chalk on walls, stick figure, book in hand, sun overhead. They leave small flowers under his old chair. They write his name in the dirt, then smooth it away before class begins. The search has become part of life now. A quiet ritual, a habit baked into the walls. No one says it outright, but everyone's waiting for the sound of a door creaking open at midnight, for a candle in a window that wasn't there before, for the sense, however faint, however impossible, that someone has returned. And you, wanderer, you feel him too. You glide through rooms that feel less empty than they should, through silence that seems to pause around corners, through air that tastes somehow unfinished, because the ghost they're searching for, he's not gone. Not really. He's in the way Ana threads her needle, in the way Diego lingers in alley shadows, in the way Father Luis holds silence like it's a relic from a buried cathedral, in the questions that still bloom in quiet corners, in the governor's mirror whispering, "You lost control the moment I spoke." Ghosts are not always dead. They're just uninvited, unclaimed, unburied. Mateo is now a specter made of memory, truth, and defiance, a haunting that wears no chains. A presence that empire cannot jail, cannot name, and most dangerously cannot prove no longer exists. So they keep searching, not to find him, but to convince themselves he's not still here. And he is, in every quiet breath, every hushed glance, every question that won't quite die. The empire does not twitch when a man screams. It does not stir when a woman weeps. It does not lose sleep over spilled blood, because blood dries. But whispers, those linger, especially the kind that drift in long after the voice that spoke them has vanished. You drift now through the highest rooms of colonial power, manor halls, records offices, drawing rooms where clocks tick too loudly and conversations avoid certain syllables. Up here, where law wears perfume and punishment is written in ink, something is off. Restlessness, a kind that trickles down walls like dampness, a kind that keeps clerks late, that makes secretaries double-check letters, that wakes magistrates just before dawn, sweaty and certain they forgot something. Something important. Something dangerous. Something small with fire in its eyes. Mateo's name is never spoken. Not anymore. The governor has forbidden it. But even forbidden names find a way. They crawl between paper margins, burrow into sighs, hitch rides on nods and careful glances. And the governor, oh wanderer, he is not well. You float past his quarters again and find him pacing. Again, not frantically. No, he would never allow that. His pacing is measured, calculated, a slow ballet of dignity eroding molecule by molecule. There are bags beneath his eyes now. Not just shadows, but hollows, places where peace used to live. He's been seeing things, hearing things. At first, it was the rustle of paper when no one was near. Then it was footsteps in the hall, always just out of sight, the creak of floorboards, a flicker of motion in the reflection of his inkwell. And once, only once, he saw it clearly. A small boy standing at the edge of the courtyard, no shoes, no sound, just watching. And when he blinked, of course, the boy was gone. Of course. And yet, the governor now sleeps with a lantern lit. Just one. Low. Constant. As if the glow might repel the thing his conscience refuses to name. His staff whisper that he's become more erratic. He signs fewer documents. He asks fewer questions. He listens more, but always with a distant expression, like someone trying to catch the tail end of a voice in another room. One night he calls for Father Luis. The priest arrives, robe askew, eyes wary. "I need a blessing," the governor says. Not confession, not counsel, just a blessing. As if holiness were a balm, as if lighting a candle could ward off the smell of guilt. Father Luis complies, murmuring prayers that feel more like poetry than absolution. When he leaves, he doesn't close the door fully. He never does anymore. Outside the mansion, in the streets, the unrest is quieter but more troubling. The curfews are obeyed, but resentfully. The taxes are paid but slowly. The eyes that once looked downward now flicker upward, sharp and brief, like flint striking steel. The soldiers know it too. They patrol not for danger, but for feeling, that prickling sense that the people are not scared anymore. Not really. They're just waiting. The problem, of course, is that no one knows what they're waiting for. There is no leader, no rebellion, no flag, just the absence, just the quiet, just the sense that something important once stood in that empty plaza chair, and worse, might stand there again. From the mainland, letters arrive. Demands for numbers, reports, reassurances. Stability is crucial, one reads. We've heard rumors concerning murmurs from travelers. Do keep them from echoing. The governor crumples the parchment with hands that tremble just a little. He does not reply. Instead, he walks to his balcony, overlooks the square. It is early morning. Fog still kisses the rooftops. A baker opens her stall, and for a moment, just a blink, he swears he sees him again, sitting in that same old chair, looking up, still 12 years old, still watching, still waiting. When he blinks, the chair is empty, but the smile that follows is not one of relief. It's the kind of smile a man wears when he realizes the ghost he tried to bury is no longer a ghost. It's an idea. You drift further now, wanderer, feeling the ripple begin. It moves beneath the cobblestones, beneath doorways, beneath the collarbones of children learning how to speak more carefully, more powerfully. The colony does not speak his name, but they remember, and now, more than before, they believe. Because the worst thing the Empire ever did was make Mateo disappear. Because now he can be anything. A spirit, a martyr, a symbol, a mirror. And the governor, once so sure, so sharp, now closes windows not because of wind, but because he swears the night speaks in a child's voice. You taught them silence. I taught them how to listen. Sleep now, wanderer. Even if the Empire cannot. Time moves forward, wanderer, but memory walks in circles. Years pass. The colony grows. New faces fill the markets. New names are etched into baptismal records, into ledgers, into gravestones. Roads are paved. Roofs are repaired. The plaza's fountain is rebuilt with imported marble from the mainland, but the chair, the one in the corner of the plaza, tucked under a jacaranda tree, remains untouched. Still wooden, still weather-worn, still empty. Children are told not to sit there, not because it's sacred, but because it is watched. You drift slowly through the town as it reshapes itself around a memory it pretends not to honor. Mateo is not mentioned in sermons anymore. The governor retired years ago, replaced by a man whose smile is somehow emptier. The magistrate vanished without explanation. The school now uses new books, but the whispers have never stopped. They've just changed languages. A small stone statue appears one day. No plaque, no dedication. It's just there, in the chapel courtyard tucked between rose bushes and candle stubs. A boy, carved from pale limestone, seated with a book open in his lap. His eyes don't look up. They don't need to. The sculptor is never named. No one takes credit. The priest says it must have been a generous patron. The governor says it's probably just decorative. But the people know. They come quietly, never in crowds, always alone, always at odd hours. Twilight, dawn, the soft hours where dreams still cling to skin. They don't bring flowers. They bring questions. They sit near him and whisper the things they can't say aloud. My brother's gone missing. What should I do? They raise the grain tax again. My daughter says she wants to speak out. I'm terrified, but proud. And though the statue never moves, never speaks, some swear it listens. Some swear more than that. One rainy evening, a young girl named Clara, 11, barefooted, streaked with mud, sits before the statue long after Vespers. She clutches a torn page of a banned pamphlet in one hand and a sliver of chalk in the other. She's crying, quietly, furiously. The way children do when they know they've discovered something awful and important. She whispers, "Why did they fear you so much?" And as the rain falls around her, as the moon emerges behind trembling clouds, she sees something. Just for a moment. A glisten beneath the statue's eye. Water, maybe rain, but not from above, from the side. As though the statue itself wept. Clara doesn't tell anyone, not because she's afraid they won't believe her, but because she's afraid they will. And then the stories begin. A soldier swears he saw the statue blink. A magistrate's son wakes from fever, claiming the boy from the courtyard told him to be brave. A ledger clerk's candles blow out every time he tries to write the name Mateo in the death registry. At first, it's rumor, then folklore, then liturgy. By the time 10 more years have passed, the statue has become a place of pilgrimage, not for tourists or priests, but for those with questions and nowhere safe to ask them. And always, it's the same 3 words carved into the base. Not etched, but scratched faintly, almost shyly. Lift your head. No one knows who wrote them. No one dares remove them. Some say the stone bleeds if you try. You float now through the governor's house, or what remains of it. It's a museum now, technically. The plaque outside reads, Residence of the Colonial Governors, 1642 to 1719. Inside, polished floors, velvet ropes, faded oil paintings. But no mention of the boy, no mention of trials, of disappearances, of a child who challenged the crown and vanished like breath from a mirror. Yet tourists sometimes ask, didn't something happen here? Wasn't there? A boy? And the docents always smile the same way. That nervous, customer service smile stretched over a skull full of secrets. No records of that, I'm afraid. Shall we look at the governor's tea set? But the attic door creaks, and the office is always colder than the rest of the house, and more than one visitor swears they've heard someone turn the pages of a book, though no books are left in the room. They leave quickly, not afraid, but watched. You return now, wanderer, to the statue. It is night again. The roses bloom around it. A candle flickers near its feet. You sit, you wait, you listen. And in the silence, you begin to hear the statue, not with ears, but with something deeper. It says nothing loud, just a whisper, a memory, a weight. It does not tell you how to change the world, only that you must try. Time has done what time always does. It softened the sharp edges, painted over the bloodstains, turned rebellion into footnote. It scrubbed the streets clean, repaved them, gave them names. But if you walk them quietly, if you tread before the sun rises, or just as it slips away, you will hear it. The echo, not of footsteps, not of soldiers, not even of sermons, but of something gentler. A voice, a question, a name. Mateo. You drift now through those streets. The buildings are newer now, mostly. Plaster over stone, glass where shutters once clattered in the wind. But the bones of the colony remain, twisting alleys, uneven steps, an old bell that still rings long after the faithful have stopped listening. And that chair? Still there. Weathered to a smooth gray. Its legs buried slightly deeper in the dirt each year, as though the earth is slowly trying to reclaim it. No one sits in it. Still. But someone oils the wood. Someone brushes away the leaves. Someone, every so often, leaves a folded scrap of paper under one leg. The notes are never signed, they are never read aloud, and they never stay long. Some are taken by the wind, others disappear overnight. But a few, just a few, have been collected. Hidden, saved. They say things like, you reminded me I had a spine. They took you, they didn't take your words. I speak now, because you did first. The children still learn the official version. No trial, no rebellion, no boy. Just some vague warning about the dangers of early radicalization. But then someone finds a torn page behind the altar, or a chalk drawing on the underside of a desk, or a folded letter hidden in the spine of a book at the chapel library. And the story starts again. Softly. In the plaza, there's a crack in the cobblestone that's never been fixed. Every time they patch it, it returns. It's not large, it's not dangerous, but it's shaped, almost impossibly, like a child's footprint. Just one. And some swear they hear it, tap, 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 when the wind is strong. You float past an old woman sitting by the fountain. Her eyes are closed. She's humming something without tune, without words. She doesn't move. But in her lap is a small book, its cover worn thin, its pages hand-bound. It's filled with quotes, some real, some imagined, all attributed to the boy who vanished. She doesn't sell them. She gives them away. Only to the ones who know to ask, she once whispered. How do you know who those are? She smiles. They always sit in the chair first. You visit the governor's grave. It is a polished thing. Marble, crisp letters, flowers placed weekly by someone paid to do so. But the ground around it is never quite still. The grass grows in odd directions. Birds won't land on the headstone. Once a local artist tried to draw it for a heritage brochure, and her pencil snapped 3 times in the same place, each time right at the eyes. When she finally finished the sketch, she cried. She didn't know why. History has moved on, yes. The empire fell eventually, as they all do. Flags changed, names shifted, the language twisted itself into something newer, blunter, easier to brand. But the streets, the stones, the air, they whisper. They whisper when no one is listening, or perhaps only when someone is. They whisper of a boy who vanished, of a voice that still lingers, of a silence that taught people how to speak. They whisper of the first moment someone realized they didn't have to kneel, that they didn't have to wait, that truth could live in a child's breath, and that the most dangerous rebellion might begin with a question asked too kindly to kill. You walk now, wanderer, through streets that appear empty. But listen, there, at your back, a rustle, a flicker, a breath. The echo again. Lift your head. Night has returned, not just to the colony, but to everything. The moon is low, the streets are still. You drift once more slowly, light as fog, quiet as memory. And now at last, we come to the final place. It isn't a grave, because there is no grave. It isn't a statue, though those remain. It isn't a name, for that too is buried. No, the final place is a dream, the dream of a lost boy. It's always the same, they say. He appears in dreams, rarely, not to everyone. But when he comes, it's never loud. There's no thunder, no flash of justice, no heavenly music, just him, sitting on that old chair beneath the jacaranda tree, his legs crossed, a book in his lap, a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. He looks the same as he always did, 12, maybe 13. Not quite grown, not quite done. The kind of face that makes you ache because it reminds you of everything you've forgotten how to believe in. And in the dream, he doesn't speak. Not at first. You sit beside him, on the ground, like a student or a child. The plaza is empty, except for you two. The sky is full of stars that don't exist in waking life. The air smells like paper and charcoal and citrus, and time stops. He turns a page. His fingers are ink-stained. His shoes are scuffed. His eyes are dark, not with anger, but with knowing. And then finally, he speaks. Always a question. Never the same one twice. What are you still waiting for? Why do you think silence will save you? When will you begin? He never accuses, never blames. But the questions stick. They root into your ribs, they settle in your throat, they glow, and when you wake, they remain. You cannot forget the dream. You cannot forget him. Some people write it off. Just a dream. Just a story. Just one more bedtime ghost. But not everyone. Some, quietly, without telling anyone, change everything. They walk differently. They speak more clearly. They listen when others cannot. They carry the question with them, not as a burden, but as a torch. You wanderer, yes you. You've walked the alleys, felt the whispers, heard the silence, and now here you are, sitting beside the boy, at the end. And you too hear the question. Soft, kind, unavoidable. Are you listening yet? You want to ask? Ask him what happened, where he went, how it ended. But deep down you already know. The truth is this. Mateo didn't vanish. He was planted, like a seed. And now he grows. In those who remember, in those who whisper, in those who dare to dream of better worlds. Not loud, not fast, but steadily, softly. So sleep now. Not because the story is over, but because it isn't. Because tomorrow you may wake with a question of your own, and maybe, just maybe, you'll ask it out loud. Maybe you'll be the voice someone else needs to hear. Maybe you'll be the whisper that lingers. Maybe you'll be the one they remember. Not for defiance, but for hope. The boy turns another page. You close your eyes beside him. The wind rustles the leaves. The plaza disappears. And somewhere in the dark, another whisper begins. The torch is dim. The doors close behind you. You've seen enough for tonight. Let your breathing slow with the silence. No need to wake up yet. You've made it to the end. I'll meet you here again, just as the echoes return.